Hello everyone, welcome. Jack Delahy here, founder of collegeconsulting.us. Today, I'm excited. I'm going to share with you my 8 favorite books for high schoolers and parents of high schoolers who are struggling with navigating the college planning process. And as you'll see, not every one of these books has everything to do with actually college planning. Some of them are more what I'd call life books as well. But I've taken my 8 favorite books that I have read personally, every single one of them, and also taken a lot of feedback from my students on which books they appreciate and have distilled it into my 8 favorite for you all. I'm also going to use this whiteboard and highlight just a couple areas of each book that I think are the most important. So if you just want the Spark Notes, that can work as well. I'll be listing these in no particular order, but they will be in 3 categories, and I'll list each of the 3 categories. First will be what I call more kind of parent books. This doesn't mean a student can't read them. It just, a lot of the discussions I think will more pertain on the parent side when it comes to college planning. Second category is student books. These, if read, will change a student's life. And the third is what I really just call life books. Certainly can help apply to parents, but students as well. Several of them I actually read when I was in high school, and it gave me kind of a new perspective on how to appreciate life more, enjoy it, and yes, that also aligns with how you just assess how you're going to go about college planning, kind of think about your future. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Alrighty, first book on the list is what I put in the parent book category. Who Gets In and Why by Jeffrey Selingo. Now, this book is exceptional. The author completes a deep dive into the admissions departments at 3 notable United States colleges. Inside, he reached out to like dozens and dozens and dozens and was only accepted by 3, one of which a pretty elite school, Emory University actually, and he goes inside the admissions department, which was pretty rare for his sake. And given that, he has some pretty exceptional insights. I found this book to be very insightful, and yes, I have a lot of notes on it, but here are my top notes. First, this exact quote, "Admissions at its best is an imprecise process." I think that's really important for students and parents to understand when they get into this college admissions game. Every year, I hear those seniors who either get rejected or waitlisted, and then they see someone else who, in their minds, has a worse profile and say, how did they get in? You need to understand admissions at its best is an imprecise process. Now, once you actually embrace this, it becomes a little bit more liberating because you don't take those rejections so hard. You also then are willing to what I'd call increase your denominator, which is instead of applying to like 2 or 3 or 4 schools, you're very willing and open to applying to, like in my program, I have all my students apply between 8 and 16 schools because you just don't know what's going to happen. It's an imprecise process, and he gives a lot of data backing that up, why it's imprecise. He even gives actual anecdotal examples on student A versus student B who are real, and he asks you as the reader to say, who do you think's getting in? One of them gets in, one of them doesn't, and as a reader, I'll tell you it's really hard to know, and then he tells you who gets in. So I highly encourage it. Yes, there are parts of this that might make you actually not like the college admissions process, and to be honest, I think that's why it's even more important to read so you understand. So I hope that helps. Second tip in this, schools must fill up sports teams. He goes through the example of actually Amherst College in here. Amherst College is typically ranked the 2nd liberal arts college in the country, typically behind Williams in Massachusetts. And guess what? Amherst College has only 1,900 undergrads, but it is full of Division III sports. So he gives the math here, 1,900 undergrads, and there are 676 athletes on campus. Division III athletes with Amherst College between all their sports teams. That makes up 36% of the undergraduate population. Why do I bring this up? Because it's absolutely critical to know that in college admissions these days, athletics, especially at a D3 school like Amherst, is a cheat code to admissions. It just is. Might it change at some point? Yeah, but right now it is a cheat code. 36% of the student body are athletes, which means they have a different admissions route. They go through college coaches, they go through athletic recruiting, and yes, the bar, the standard for them is lower. I bring this up because if you are just a normal student, right, 36% of the incoming class is just already eliminated because they have to be an athlete. So if you're a normal student applying to Amherst, you're wondering why the admissions rate is so incredibly small for a normal non-athletic student. That's why. They've still got to fill up a football team. And so when I saw the data presented like that in here, it definitely kind of gave me that wow factor. Oftentimes I have students that are kind of considering playing athletics in college, whether they're considering club or Division III or even Division I. And I think it's important for a lot of families to understand just the value in athletics, if that is a route you want to go, because Amherst College has to fill up 36% of their class no matter what. So certainly important to understand that and put that in perspective, the value of athletic recruiting, if that's a route. Last thing, every school is unique. I tell this to my families all the time, but every college has a slightly unique application process, has a slightly unique process inside their admissions doors to actually review applications, accept, reject, waitlist. And they actually give an example in the book. Emory is certainly unique. They have what's called a Latting Index, which they take every student's academics, combine it with their test score, and then they just rank a student on an 8-point scale, 8 being obviously the highest ranked, 1 being the lowest. I bring this up because they're the only one with the Latting Index. Latting is actually named after Emory's dean. But I think it's really important to understand that every process is slightly unique. There are similarities, but ultimately it's up to a school and a college to determine their own process. And once again, that just adds to there is a certain aspect of college applications that you cannot control as a high schooler or a parent of a high schooler. And once you know that, I actually think it's a little bit more liberating to say, you know what, I'm just going to put my best foot forward, and then colleges can do what they want with my application. Number 2 on the list, College Admissions Cracked by Jill Margaret Shulman. Great book. The reason I want to bring this one up is she is one of the few college coaches I see out there who aligns their teachings in the way I do, and that is seasonal through the years. So if you are a member of my program, you know my programs typically start at the back half of sophomore year of high school, and my teachings align with where you fall between sophomore, junior, senior year of high school, off to freshman, fall, and college. I think that's important because a sophomore in high school should not even think about when to write their college essay. They should focus on other aspects, things like high school grades and beginning the college search. The college essay has a time and a place, and by the way, that's the summer between junior and senior year. Jill goes through her steps in that same kind of seasonal and through the years methodology, so I really, really like that. She provides timelines for students and parents to understand when the major components to the college planning process happen. She also gives great tips on paying for school. She has a big aspect of her insights that have to do with scholarships, merit scholarships, financial aid, etc. So I really think this is a great book if you are a parent. It also, just so you know, she's a mom, and it's written in the tone to other parents, which I think a lot of other books don't quite have that same type of tone. So there are certain aspects where she just, mentions certain parts of parenting that are difficult, and I think it might relate to a lot of parents out there. So that is book number 2. Again, this falls into the parent book category. Let's continue on. Parents of high schoolers, real quick, and then I'll get you right back to this video. If you are finding value from the video, I have one request, because I'm never going to run ads on these videos, I promise. And so my one way to really share these videos to the masses is to ask you for a favor. Do you mind sharing this with any other high school parents that you know might need help? You can do that by directly sharing, like via, just texting the link to the video, or you can also share on your socials like Instagram or Facebook. It would mean a lot to me. And lastly, if you're really, really getting value and you want to make sure that you're subscribed, you can click the like button, the subscribe button. It'll help the algorithms let you know when my next video is released. Now, back to more value. Moving on now to books number 3 and 4. This falls into what I think the student category most pertains to. Now, absolutely, these books can be beneficial to parents if you want to read them. But when I think of these books, the next 3 that I'm going to list, they're more student-oriented, meaning I think if a high schooler were to embrace these and read them, it would help them tremendously in their day-to-day high school activities. I put 3 and 4 together. They're both written by Cal Newport. He has had a profound impact on my life and did starting in high school. The first is How to Become a High School Superstar. Now, in my program, at the start, I mail this book to every single student who joins my program and asks for it. And yes, there is a threshold where they need to ask for it, and most of my students actually do. And I mail this to them to their front door, and they tell me how beneficial this is, which is why I've put it up here on the board. A couple things about this. First, Cal Newport talks about the relaxed superstar methodology, which I think is really important to understand. It goes along with the notion that I talk about often: different is greater than difficult. Sometimes you don't have to always just do the thing that is more difficult or that leads to a more crammed schedule or that leads to less sleep. Sometimes in college admissions, actually just doing something that's unique, different, and has your application stand out from the pack is actually much more valuable, and it doesn't necessarily have to require something that's extremely difficult to accomplish. The thesis of this book is he interviews several students who get into some of the top colleges in the country, like, yes, Stanford, and guess what? They don't even have straight A's. And the reason he does this is because he's saying, okay, if you're getting into Stanford without straight A's, what did you do, right? And the notion is they had a really elite, what I call category 4 of admissions, which is your story, your unique story, some sort of project they worked on for a long time, or some sort of passion they had that they dove super deep into that was a little bit more unique than the way a typical 15, 16, or 17-year-old would explore a passion. So highly recommend this book. Also, then, what you're going to see is he takes the best tips from number 4 and he puts them into this book. So when students reach out, I talk about Cal Newport. He's written several books. They want them all. This is where I would start because he actually takes some of the best study habits from book number 4 here and puts them in here into an all-in-one How to Be a Great High School Superstar. Highly encourage this book. If you're wondering where to start with Cal Newport, I recommend here. Just know some of the tips might start to be outdated. He did write this like a decade ago, but the actual methodologies and the thoughts behind it still hold true to this day. Number 4. This is my actual book that I bought in 2009. My actual book. It's pretty cool to see. Has all my notes, my highlights in it. It's very worn. This book changed my life more than any book I've ever read, and I can say that confidently. This is called How to Be a Straight A Student by Cal Newport, and yes, this was written in, 2006 or something. So, first of all, I want you to know some of the methodologies in here are outdated at this point, okay? When he talks about printing out a bunch of PDFs for a research paper, you could probably just keep those online these days. No need to kill those trees. But what this taught me, this opened my mind as a 16, 17-year-old to the notion of there is actually a learnable process to studying in high school. And that was mind-blowing for me. Before I read this book, I was a grind student. You can actually go back and see some of my past YouTube videos. I was a grind student, and I didn't realize that there was a process to studying. I just thought it was study more and hope for the best. And it was fairly effective. I was kind of that A- type student, sometimes B+, sometimes A, and I worked really hard to get those. And Cal opened my eyes to the fact that you could systematize studying. I embraced all of his methodologies to heart and then applied them senior year of high school, where I did not get a single A-. I got a 4.0, straight A's in every single class, and I truly think I worked probably about half the time. At one point, maybe I can get my physics teacher on here, Mr. Panucci, who is just an incredible person, but he always marveled at my study habits senior year, and I owe almost all of them to this book. So that'd be great. Maybe I'll bring him on for an interview at some point. But what's funny is if Mr. Panucci had just seen me a year earlier, my study habits were a lot more scattered. I did not have a system. But by the time he saw me senior year, he was like, whoa, who is this student? And it was all because of this book, all of it. High school grades and the rigor of classes you take are the single most important factors in all of college admissions. And so, again, if you're going to start there, this book and this book are where to do it. Again, I think this is a better starting spot only because it takes the best methods from this book and puts them into here. But if you want to go deep the way I did with this book and really get to become an elite high school study year, I highly recommend this. And also, by the way, these translate into college too. So if you're thinking, well, I'm at the tail end of high school, I'm not really sure, the study habits in here will absolutely translate into college. Highly recommend it. All right, let's move on to number 5. All right, coming in at number 5 here, my last student book of the day, and this is College Essay Essentials by Ethan Sawyer. Now, as we know, college essay is the third most important category in college admissions. 1, grades, 2, standardized test score, 3, college essays. That includes your Common App personal statement, which most of this is about, that will go to every college you apply to. And yes, it also includes supplemental essays. I think for most students who wonder, how do you even go about starting a college essay? And if they're not in my formal program, where we certainly do that over a 6-week essay writing boot camp, then they need a spot to start. And honestly, just Googling how to write a college essay, it's almost overwhelming. I think it's a really good spot to start for 2 reasons. 1, he has tons of great examples in here. Tons of great examples of elite essays. And it's really powerful to see those examples, because then when you get into the methodology portion, the methodology kind of makes sense and you can align it with an example. I find a lot of students benefit from seeing elite level college essays that stand out, when they can just see it. And then when it comes to the methodology, it all makes sense. He also, just so you know, Ethan, I think, has the best brainstorming exercises on the market today. He helps students go from that kind of, I'm stuck, I don't even know where to start, and he walks through very easy brainstorming exercises, where as a student, you're almost like, how is this going to get me to write an essay? And then it's amazing how it almost is a waterfall effect, where by the end, you know what you want to write about. Pretty cool. Highly recommend College Essay Essentials if you're interested in that category 3, your college essay. But I'll just put it out there. The time to really go start to finish through the college essay is the summer between junior and senior year. You can certainly read this before, but if you're a sophomore right now, don't dive into this. There are other things that you need to do to work on your college applications other than working on your college essay. There's a time and a place for everything. So that is number 5 and the last of our student books. All right, we are back with my final 3 books, 6, 7, and 8, and these are what I call life books. Students love them, parents love them. These are 3 of the most profound books that I've ever read, and I want to share them with you. In my program, I actually recommend these often to students who either need help with kind of their mindset or just want a book to really think about their approach to life, etc. So here are 3. The first is The 4 Agreements. This is a super thin book. This can be like a stocking stuffer and really profound. You can look it up if there are any Tom Brady fans out there. This is one of his favorite books of all time. 4 agreements are: 1, be impeccable with your word. 2, don't take anything personally. 3, don't make assumptions. And 4, always do your best. Now, those might sound pretty basic, but he gives great examples of how you can apply them in life. And I find that this is kind of an easy one just to flip through and read for like 5 minutes whenever I want, if I'm ever feeling a little down. Definitely helps pick up the vibes. Highly recommend it. Number 2, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I will never forget the first time I read this. I read it the summer between senior year of high school and freshman year of college, and had a profound impact on me. How to Win Friends and Influence People. To be honest, I think it has a terrible name. I actually think that this name sounds fairly manipulative, and it's the opposite type of book. It just goes through really great tips on kind of how to think about your interactions with people in life and what really matters. After I read this book, I made a conscious effort to be better at remembering names, and I just saw how when you actually, address someone by their name, how a smile lights up on their face. Things that really I knew in the back of my head, but when you see it written on paper, really changes kind of your day-to-day life. How to Win Friends and Influence People, I think, is a bad name for the book, but it's incredible. It stood the test of time. This was written decades and decades ago. So, sure, there are some things in here that are a little outdated. Like, I think he has a list of note cards with people's birthdays on them, and he calls them on their birthday. Perhaps these days you can just know when someone's birthday is because they list it on Facebook. But you get the point. I think that it's really important. It just makes you think about the things that really people appreciate in life, and it can go a long way. And then lastly, don't sweat the small stuff. This is a book with 100 chapters. Each chapter is anywhere between 1 and 3 pages. So it's really easy to just pick up in the morning or at night or whenever you want and read for like 30 seconds and you pick up a great chapter. But it's really just tiny tips on life. And I think it puts things in perspective. And I'm listing this last today because sometimes the college admissions journey can get stressful for not just students but parents. And a book like this, in really easy to consume chapters that you can just flip to and read, can kind of help you realize that ultimately what we're talking about is a great journey that students are going on. A 4-year journey where they get to go off on their own for the first time, explore life, learn new things, make mistakes, have fun, meet new friends, meet lifelong friends. And when you read a book like this, don't sweat the small stuff, and it's almost all small stuff, it just puts all of that into perspective. And I think, especially when it comes kind of admission time, acceptance, rejection, wait list, it makes you realize that whatever happens, happens, and ultimately some things are out of our control. So I hope this was helpful. Quick recap on each of the books. Who Gets In and Why by Jeffrey Selingo. College Admissions Cracked by Margaret Shulman. College Essay Essentials by Ethan Sawyer. How to Become a High School Superstar by Cal Newport, and How to Become a Straight A Student by Cal Newport. And then the 4 agreements. How to Win Friends and Influence People. 4 Agreements is by Miguel Ruiz. How to Become Friends and How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And lastly, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff by Richard Carlson. That is it. I hope this was helpful for you all. We will link to each of these in the thread, so you can go. You can find it on Amazon. And until next time, have a happy, stress-free college planning journey. Thanks.